Hey, what's up, guys? We got a great show for you today. We're going to get into all of our Super Bowl reaction and how some of the stuff we saw with the Eagles and the Chiefs impact our views of the Saints. Where do the Saints go now that the Derek Carr sweepstakes have opened up and everybody can enter with him declining his no-trade clause? And if they don't get him, what does that look like for the team? What's the next move after that? And then we get into the big what if of probably the next 2 decades of what if the Saints would have actually got Patrick Mahomes instead of just being in interviews talking about how they almost got into Patrick Mahomes. How does that impact the 2018 draft, the 2019 draft? When does Drew Brees leave? Would Sean Payton still be the coach? What happens to Teddy Bridgewater? Is Taysom Hill still in the NFL? The tentacles are long and far-reaching, so there is a lot to unpack there, and we unpack all of it in today's episode of the show, which is presented by Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey and coming to you from the Better Call Botto podcast studio. Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of 3-year-old wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it's not for the thin skin. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. Look, it's in a ton of grocery stores right now, too. Anywhere you go, look for the red bottle with the gator on it. You can't go wrong. And if you need legal help with any of the following: car wrecks, offshore injuries, 18-wheeler collisions, Maritime and Jones Act, hurricane and storm claims, you better call Botto at 504-323-7777 or 985-303-7777 for your free consultation and case review. And check out our guys, Firehouse Subs, Veterans Boulevard location. Great people, do great stuff for the community, always give them back. And now it's time for us to give you this episode of the NewOrleans.Football podcast. Let's go. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the NewOrleans.Football podcast. Before we get into business, I just want to thank everybody who has supported the site, signed up, watched the podcast. It's coming up on our 3-year anniversary this week, and none of this is possible without any of you guys. Tuesday, we turn 3. If you're listening to the podcast, you haven't been subscribed yet to the website, sign up. We want to do a whole lot more. We're doing the Saints now, but the long-term vision is Louisiana.Football, NewOrleans.Basketball. We want to do everything, but it's step-by-step with support, and we're stabilizing here. We want to take the next step, so you guys help us grow. We can do a whole lot more, but everybody that has supported us in any way, even just retweeted an article, we are eternally grateful for all that support. All right.
Who's doing the halftime show for the 3-year anniversary pod?
I'd bring back to my guy Chulo. He gave us our first intro song.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna get Lil Wayne, but
no. We're a family business. We're a family business. So you support us, we support you. That's kind of how we do things.
I like
around
that.
here. Yeah.
I like that.
So speaking of family business, the team needs a quarterback, and they need a quarterback bad. And it kind of felt like they had the inside track on Derek Carr. They might still have the inside track on Derek Carr, but they're gonna have to try to figure out how to pull him out of traffic. You know, it's not a straight up, hey, come pick me up, we're going type deal. At least the optics, him turning down a trade, maybe there's a secret handshake deal. You never know. But right now, it looks like they're going to have to compete with other teams to get him. Ian Rappaport reported that he's not going to waive his no-trade clause.
Yeah.
Given the way they approach it, you would have liked them to just kind of go in, pick him up, and be out of there and circumvent everything. But now it's going to be a competition.
Well, we exhausted probably 4 hours of our lives texting back and forth, and it was all about not being able to understand how this scenario was supposed to work, like how the Raiders had any influence over that. Like, you know, you were saying, offer him a higher pick. I don't care. Just get the deal done. I'm like, how could offering a higher pick to the Raiders influence Carr's decision one way or another? And it turns out it doesn't. The Raiders are out of this. The Raiders had no say in this. The one thing the Saints did do, though, is use that weird situation to their advantage to offer the Raiders enough to jump in line, to get that visit, to bring in Carr and his wife. If that counts for anything, I mean, we know it counted for Drew Brees back in 2006 that, you know, the Saints offered more money, the Dolphins were skeptical, but Brees cared a little that one team really wanted him, you know? Like if another team is calling and being like, we kind of like you, the Saints are like, no, we love you, man. And maybe that matters. But He's a free agent. He had incredible leverage all along. He still has incredible leverage. The Saints will lose if somebody offers more money, and the Saints will lose if he likes the situation better. He's a free agent. He always was a free agent.
Yeah.
So there's nothing they could do about that. But there's obviously some mutual belief there. They were the ones who were the most aggressive in bringing him in for that visit, and he took it, and he's interested in hearing what they have to say. One thing I think is interesting is there was at least one report that the Saints were trying to offer or rework his deal to lower it, which, as they should. I think everybody who is torn on Derek Carr is, I like Derek Carr at the right price. So at least now we know it's not going to be like a raise and a third-round pick. But if the Saints will only sign him at one price, maybe they will get outbid. So, I mean, there's any number of – this isn't just who gives him the best sales pitch. It's who gives him the best offer.
This is if they don't end up with him, it's tough. Like, there's no way around that. That's
unless they're the ones setting a line. Like,
still, I mean, you can set a line forever and then you don't got to ride the ride. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta at some point find a quarterback. And if you're drawing the line year after year and you're not getting your guy because of that, it is a tough look. And it's a tough look to be this aggressive 2 years in a row and kind of get left. It's a tough look to be the team that made the aggressive push to get him. And if you don't end up with them, it's a bad look. Now, if you do get him under these circumstances, it's significantly better than giving up a pick, obviously. I mean, if you somehow he goes out and he still picks you, that's cool. If he goes out and picks someone else and you still end up with a viable quarterback, that's cool too. But it would be tough to go 2 years in a row, ultra aggressive. We got to go get this guy. We're going to send, the cavalry out to meet Deshaun Watson. Yeah. We're going to be the team that maneuvers everybody to get Derek Carr here before anybody else. And if you end up empty-handed both times, it is a little bit of it's a loss. I mean, but this is life now. This is life now. And the thing that I will say is that even if they're going to have to take black eyes for these pursuits that fail, I want them taking the pursuits.
Right, that's where I agree with you. That's why I don't know if the camera picked me up kind of wincing. I don't care about bad look. I don't want to worry about perception. Well, I want them in the mix every year, and I also want them to draw the line. I didn't want them to outbid the Browns for Deshaun Watson last year. That was a ridiculous amount that the Browns had to pay. The Saints should have been in on it. Deshaun Watson's a different story. Saints should be in on every quarterback. They should be drawing their line on Lamar Jackson if he's somehow available. They shouldn't just be like, we'll pay whatever it costs for anybody. They should be aggressive and they should draw a line. That's how every team should operate. I don't care about bad luck, but
some teams
want them to get their quarterback eventually.
Some teams end up being the team that have to pay to get players though. Like if you're Jacksonville, you have to pay to get Christian Kirk to go there, and it ends up being the right move. And maybe it's a little bit expensive, and you end up being that team. If the Saints continue kind of on their trajectory, they might be a team that has to pay a little bit more than, I don't know, somebody else. I mean, that can kind of be your reality. But I will say perception does matter now more so than it did a few years ago, because the perception of like, okay, Sean Payton's going after all these people in their reckless pursuits and, it looks horrible, but, they still won 12 games, so perception doesn't really matter. When perception is you're not making the moves you want to make and then you're losing more games than you're winning, perception becomes reality to some extent. And then I think that does infect your pursuit of these other guys. And then that's how you do actually become the team that has to overpay Christian Kirk. So I think that going for it is really good. And yeah, I mean, who cares? Like at a certain point, you're taking black eyes. If you succeed, all the black eyes go away. But like if you just keep taking black eyes and you never succeed, you do end up in a place where it's just kind of like, man, like, what are they doing? And I think you have to be careful of that a little bit.
Right. No, I mean, but we agree there's a line. Yeah. I mean, they can get Derek Carr. If they decide to pay him $50 million a year, they'll get him.
Well, sure.
If they decide to pay him $45 million a year, get him. They're going to set a line. They have to set a line. You mentioned Jacksonville. They overpaid for Nick Foles. It was the wrong price. The reality is, I have talked myself into Derek Carr. You've liked Derek Carr a little more from the beginning, but we were both kind of we need to do my research into the guy.
He's not a savior. Let's talk about that. He's not a savior.
Well, but what I was going to say is there's still some, like, I was talking to my brother-in-law. I was talking to my kid's teacher, who should probably take one of our spots on this podcast. Like she's incredible. And, there's a lot of Carr skeptics out there. Like that. I like him. I've talked myself into him. I want to see the Saints with him compared to the alternatives this year. But he's a draw the line guy. There are some quarterbacks that are overpay and figure it out. I don't know if I'm at overpay and figure it out with Derek Carr.
Well, I mean, you got to define overpay. Like I'd pay the 40 if I have to. I'm fine paying 40. I'm not fine paying 50. I'm not paying him $50 million. $50 million is save your money. $40 million is like solid, not a problem money, you know? And that's what Derek Carr is.
And I think that's something that people haven't realized. We've talked about this, but I've already got the graphic prepared in case it happened this week. That would already put him at 40 would tie him for like 7th, but if it was going to be that 38 point whatever, he would be only the 9th highest paid quarterback, and that doesn't include Hurts and Lawrence and Herbert and Burrow, who are all going to vault that soon. Like, if they paid him $38 million a year, he'd be like the 14th highest paid quarterback in a couple years. Yep. And people agree he's about the 14th best quarterback. So I think people think $40 million is Mahomes money. Not anymore.
$40 million is losing the divisional round, and Nick and Mike sit here and they go, "Is he good enough?" On the podcast after they lose. Is he good enough? That's what $40 million gets you. It gets you to like, is he good enough? But it gets you away from he isn't good enough. Yeah. And that's just the price you have to pay. But I would pay the $40 million. Like, if I wouldn't give up. See, when we started this whole conversation, the whole theoretical Derek Carr thing, I think both of our take was he's cool. You can pay the money or you can pay the draft pick, but you can't pay both. And that was kind of it. And then they kind of got into it and it was like, all right, I guess if they can cut everybody and assure they get him, fine. That's the price you have to pay to make sure you get this guy on a team that's kind of like in an iffy spot. But it was still kind of like, it's a lot. It's a lot to pay. So if you get to a point where it's just money, I'm cool with just paying the money.
I
would
raise
pay
your
the 40
offer now. You can pay more than you were going to pay.
I would pay, and I would maybe even overpay a tad. Like, and that would kind of be like, all right, I'll give him 41.5. He was due 38.6 per season. I'll pay the extra $3 million or whatever. Like, so I keep my 3rd round pick. Like, I guess that 3rd round pick is worth a few million if you have to put it through that prism. But man, there is a line, but like I would be willing to stretch my line a little bit to end the pursuit, you know, to make sure you get him so that you aren't doing this again next year. Because look, if they don't get him, you're probably at the end of the season. Is the coach good enough? Is the OC good enough? Is all that?
You don't have to wait till the end of the season for those. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like that's where it's going to be. That's where it's going to be because you're going to have a losing season if you don't have a quarterback.
If the coaches have a say in this, the coaches can pay whatever it costs because they're the ones who are going to be on the hot seat afterward. It depends if management can let them be all in for this year. Now, I think the one thing clearly to root for now is I think this will take a little time now. I mean, why shouldn't Derek Carr take his time? But Aaron Rodgers becomes a huge puzzle piece now because if the Jets get Aaron Rodgers or don't get, the Packers keep Aaron Rodgers gets traded to the Raiders or whatever, then all of a sudden the Jets might be like, all right, now Derek Carr is the best guy available. If the Raiders get Aaron Rodgers, like that would be a bad thing as the puzzle pieces fit together. Root for the Jets to get Aaron Rodgers, and then I think one of Carr's potential big suitors is out of the way. But yeah, I mean, that jigsaw puzzle works for everyone. Maybe the Panthers get more aggressive. Maybe a lot of teams that weren't ready to be aggressive yet will be more aggressive the longer it plays out.
Like if you don't get this guy and he ends up in your division too, and you get nothing, that's another tough look. And look, it's a long-term play. It is like it's not a 1-year window, but in the way they're operating right now, it does kind of feel year to year because everything does feel temporary until we see success or we see the failure that takes them out. But until you can assume success, until we're at a place where we're saying, all right, we'll give them the benefit of doubt on that. Like it does feel, everything feels temporary because it feels like things could go wrong and then everybody's cleared out of the house. So this would at least be a way to at least eliminate also all the like, well, this didn't work out. They didn't have this. How are they supposed to succeed without that? Oh, they had a backup quarterback starting. The starting quarterback was hurt and, all this stuff. Like get them the pieces they want. Like it's sort of like with DA's staff. Like people are mad about stuff. Let DA have his staff. Let him have all his people. Let him have all his pieces and then go make it work. And if you don't, cool, fine. They'll do something else. But like, I just want them to get into a place where it's not like, well, they didn't have this or that, or how can they succeed under like, no, let's eliminate all that. Like, let's just put it together and move forward. Like that would be the best way, I think. But there is a price limit. Like I'm not going to 46.
Yeah.
I'm going to like 41-ish, maybe 42.
Well, I agree that you can raise that price now that you didn't lose the pick. I
guarantee the whole damn contract if I have to. For the first 3 years.
The glass half full take on this now is if you want him, you can still be the highest bidder. But that highest bid doesn't have to include a draft pick, which wasn't going to influence his decision anyway.
Right.
Like that draft pick wasn't convincing Derek Carr to come here. That draft pick was some weird finder's fee you had to pay the Raiders. I'm glad they're out of it. Now you can just be the team that makes the highest offer to Carr if you want him bad enough.
The one thing we did see is that having a Superman at quarterback is major. Look, let me start out by saying this. Like, last offseason, there were probably like, man, it's weird that DA's like kryptonite is like a mid-tier QB who, like, Jalen Hurts is he's a star.
He's not a mid-tier QB.
He is a star. Like, some of the stuff he did yesterday, it's a shame he didn't win that game because, like, he was incredible outside of the fumble. Like, some of the throws he made, his decision making, it kind of got my mind like thinking about Taysom Hill. I'll never get it. I'll never get why it can't work fully. Like, he doesn't throw like Hurts. Like, he's nowhere near the passer that Jalen Hurts is. He's probably comparable somewhat as a runner. Like, his running stuff is really good. I just don't understand why, like, you can't take these two things, piece them together, create like the one read offense, and off you go.
Yeah, I mean, not to go down this rabbit hole, but
we're going.
But what I'm going to say is, I'm not going to insult Jalen Hurts by making the comparison, but we saw their origins almost coincide completely in 2000 and help me out here, 19?
Yeah.
Is that the year it was? 20. They were basically starting their first game. Like, I think it was Hill's third start and Hurts's first start. And we watched the way Hurts had not developed to this level as a passer yet. And we watched that game play out. And I think we were both saying, why doesn't the Saints offense look like this?
Yep.
Like, one read or run, two reads or run. Like, why wasn't that what it looked like? And maybe if it did to start with, maybe if Taysom Hill was running for, like what the Bears are doing with Justin Fields right now. And then if you do it for long enough, then you have time to develop as a passer. But we'll never know why the Saints didn't feature Taysom Hill's running ability more early.
I'm not making the Hill Hurts comparison. Yeah. Like, Hurts is a significantly more talented player. Yeah. Like, my thought is, I'm just watching. I'm like, man, like, why can't they be average on offense? Like, you could have an average, mobile one read run type quarterback with Taysom, or you could have like an average pocket passer with Derek Carr. Like, I don't know. I just don't get why it can't work out. There's something missing that it's just hard to get your head around. But like, it just never. We've had the conversation. It just never felt like they invested fully in it. Like, if you could go out and get like the Eagles offense and put Taysom in it, like, I feel like he could probably be better than he ever was here. That's the only point I'm making.
Okay, let's give up Taysom completely. I mean, there are. Like, if the Ravens double down on Lamar Jackson, Tyler Huntley becomes one of the intriguing cheap quarterback options to me. And I kind of scratch off the mobile quarterbacks. I'm like, well, they obviously don't like running an offense designed.
But Jeff Allen said they prefer it. That's the funny thing.
Crazy.
That's the funny thing. Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's the funny thing. The other thing with the Super Bowl, I mean, there's always going to be the what if with Patrick Mahomes. The what if. I mean, this guy, I think. Like, I'm ready to put him in like my top 3 right now already. Like, I think he's there. I'd rank him ahead of Aaron Rodgers. Like, for my lifetime, it's Brady, Manning, and Mahomes. Like, as far as the guys that I've been able to watch, I was probably a little too young to like fully appreciate Joe Montana, but like, I respect that he's up there. Mike Sky, Otto Graham, like, is probably in there somewhere. But
my guy's right here. I could have worn my touchdown QB Eagles Tecmo Bowl shirt today. That's my guy, not Otto Graham.
But yeah, but my top 3, like, my lifetime, are definitely those guys right now. But obviously, we've heard Sean Payton talk about how close they were forever. I've talked to people that were part of that process, and like, Sean actually did like this guy ahead of the draft. Like, all this stuff is real. Like,
everybody says they were gonna draft Pat Mahomes. The Saints really were gonna draft Pat Mahomes.
They were really gonna.
Only thing that stopped them from drafting Pat Mahomes was Marshawn Lattimore slipping. Like, those two guys, I think, were both ranked in their top 4. And they would, if either guy went at like 6, they would have traded up to 7 for the other guy. Yeah. Like, the only reason they stayed at 11 was because they would have been happy with Lattimore and Mahomes. Now, they might have ultimately taken Lattimore over Mahomes, but they went into that day thinking, right. But well, I mean, like, we've talked to everybody about it. And they don't ever know for sure because they never actually got to make the choice. Lattimore was higher on their board, but regardless, they went into that day thinking they were taking Mahomes, assuming they thought Lattimore would go in the top 5, and they would be taking Mahomes at 11 or moving up a couple spots to take Mahomes. So this is a bona fide what if.
So how much different is it if they get him? Like, just top of the pyramid.
They win. They go to these 3 Super Bowls and win them. Nobody disagrees with the fact that the Saints roster at every other position besides quarterback has been as good as any other roster in the NFL since 2017. For a while, it was the best roster at positions 2 through 53 in the NFL. And the last couple of years, it's been a good enough roster that I think they are the ones who go to at least 3 Super Bowls and win at least 2 Super Bowls if Pat Mahomes is their quarterback. I have no problem believing that.
So, all right, let's start at the top. Like, Sean Payton obviously is still the coach.
Yeah.
Pat Mahomes.
He's already in the Hall of Fame. They waived the 5-year rule because they think he's a QB whisperer, because nobody's going to be like, oh, well, Mahomes was a sure thing. They're going to be like, look at the development that Sean Payton did with this guy, because people would have never realized that he was going to succeed no matter what.
Right. So Sean's still the coach. When does Drew leave? When do they push him out?
Okay, now
of
here's the real what if that I've always wondered. So that 2017 Saints team started off horrible on defense. They gave up over 1,000 yards in the first 2 weeks. They were 0-2, got creamed by Minnesota, got creamed by New England, and gave up over 500 or like over 1,000 yards in 2 games. Now, they had also missed the playoff, or they had gone 7-9 3 straight years. Marshawn Lattimore was a huge reason why they turned things around and finally fixed that defense. There's a scenario where all they have to do, if Marshawn Lattimore made a 2-game difference, they missed the playoffs for the 4th straight year. I think Breeze is gone.
Breeze is. I think he's gone too.
I think they don't re-sign Drew Brees, and Mahomes takes over as a starter in 2018. And so that's a big. If they had gone, we used to talk about this. I remember this used to be one of our sideline conversations. Would it have been worth it to miss on Mahomes if they would have just won one more with Breeze in 2018? No, I mean, obviously it wouldn't have. It would have been much better to have Mahomes or whatever, but that would have been a nice bow on the Breeze, Peyton, or whatever. At least you would have had that, and not going to that. It's another reason why not going to the 2018 Super Bowl really, really, really hurts.
I think there's 2 things that happen that make them really bad that season, or at least worsen where they're at and up the odds of them missing the playoffs. Because I think they were desperate for a cornerback. Like, they had to get a cornerback at some point in that draft. So if you don't get Lattimore, you probably draft Kevin King at the end of the first round. Kevin King sucks. Like, he's out of the league. He's no longer a football player. That was a bust of a pick. His last season, I think, was in 21. Like, he just wasn't good.
You can't give him Tre'Davious White. They could have moved up.
No, I don't think that, I mean, they might have, but let's existing in the reality of the situation. And then also Streif gets hurt and Ramczyk fills in for him. You don't have Ramczyk. Ramczyk was a big piece of that season. I think they're huge. I think their situation at tackle becomes a borderline.
So let's just say they missed the playoffs.
They missed the playoffs.
Yeah,
they missed the playoffs.
And they didn't hit on Ramczyk, which is a huge piece, because as we know, not only do you rarely get a first team All Pro at 32, you can go ahead and say, okay, well then next year let's draft the right tackle. You can miss on a lot of offensive linemen in the first round too. We've seen the Saints do it. So yeah, at the very least, now if you're really trying to sell yourself into this being okay, you've lost out on Lattimore and Ramczyk now.
I think you miss out on another guy too. Like, Sean finds Taysom Hill at the end of that season doing his little scouting report of Max McCaffrey. If you got now, Breeze might have been gone, but maybe not. Like, maybe you're looking at your QB depth chart. You aren't maybe looking for that Breeze successor because you have Pat Mahomes, so maybe you're passing on them. But you got there's 2 QBs I think that get affected by this. But you got Chase Daniel, Breeze, and Mahomes on your roster, so there's probably no room for Taysom Hill. And then also, that might end his career, because his longevity in the league is because they figured out he worked on special teams, which I think bought him time to develop as a quarterback. Then he kind of gets this chance to become this all-purpose player because of it. But if Sean Payton never sees him, the Packers are probably only looking at him as a QB. They're showcasing him in the preseason. He's probably not good enough. If he gets another shot somewhere else, it's probably QB only. That first training camp, he passed like 30% in practice. Like, I don't think that he's in the NFL. There's a solid chance he's not in the NFL right now if they don't.
I think they still.
If they don't miss on Mahomes,
they still sign him, right?
Maybe
I don't
not.
remember. It was Chase Daniel that year in 17.
Yeah, they had Chase Daniel, Breeze, and then it would have been Mahomes. Yeah.
All right.
They might have signed him, but I don't know, man. Like, he signed him with this idea of like, I'm going to develop this guy into a
because it
quarterback.
wasn't just putting him on the practice squad. They put him on the active roster.
Yeah.
You don't do that for a fourth QB.
There's at least a 50-50 chance that Taysom Hill's not
we're
in the
now
NFL.
trading Lattimore, Ramczyk, and Taysom Hill for Mahomes, which is we're still doing it.
And one more guy. One more guy. They trade for Teddy Bridgewater.
What year did they trade for Bridgewater?
That was that 18 or 17? 17 or 18?
Not 17.
It was 18 then. So they trade for Teddy. They get Teddy on the team. Breeze gets hurt the next year. They talk him into sticking around and everything. He has the 5 wins. Like, his career is probably a little bit different. He's still in the league, obviously. He still gets his chances, but I don't know if he gets the same contract after that. I think that 5-game audition like changed his career a little bit and got him a little bit more money. He's ultimately in the place where he would have been anyhow, probably is a top-tier backup, but he got there a little bit later and got a little bit more money because they didn't draft Pat Mahomes. Like, he wouldn't have ended up here.
I like it all. I mean, this is just therapy for all the Saints fans who are like,
all right, let's keep going. So 18, they make
still not. It still hurts. It still hurts.
So 18, you go in the draft. They need a cornerback still. They still need a pass. They still need a pass rusher.
Oh gosh, you are really sweetening the pot. You're not now. All of a sudden, we're not trading for Marcus Davenport.
You're not trading for Marcus Davenport.
You are really catering to.
And they're still cornerback desperate. They're still cornerback desperate because the year after, still with Lattimore, they were cornerback desperate, and they didn't answer that position until they got Jackrabbit. You know, they were up in the air. So they're still cornerback desperate. We know Kevin King isn't great. That was kind of apparent early on.
All right.
You know, and
you're losing. No, you're losing me. I still say they were defensive end desperate. They were defensive.
There's two things I think happen. I think you draft your cornerback. I think they draft Alexander. I think they probably draft Alexander because you're picking earlier too. You don't have to move up to get him. And I think they probably
because you just missed the playoffs and you just let Drew Brees go.
Yeah.
So you're not necessarily in all-in mode like
you're not all in. So I think you draft him,
Jair Alexander,
and I think they make that trade for Clowney. And I think Clowney it kind of becomes the stopgap. It opens up then. I think Trey Hendrickson gets more opportunities. I think he ultimately ends up being the guy that sticks on the team long term.
Wow.
I think that's kind of how it plays out.
So we've lost Lattimore, Ramczyk, and Taysom Hill.
And Davenport.
But we've got Jair Alexander, Clowney. And, so you swung it back around.
Yeah.
You know, for a minute there, you were making it okay that they missed out on Mahomes, and now you've made reality even better. Yeah.
Look, it can get worse. So they're a good team in 18. They're a good team in 18. So they're picking towards the end of the first round.
Sure.
Maybe 32nd, maybe 31st, maybe 30th. They probably need a wide receiver.
In 19 now? The 19 draft?
19 because you have your 19 first round pick because you didn't trade it for Davenport.
Yeah. Who are we getting at the Hold on.
What
receiver are we drafting
well,
at
you're
the
hoping
end of the 2019?
You're hoping it's not N'Keal Harry.
I can't remember because the Saints weren't in the mix that year, so I don't remember researching.
Debo and AJ Brown are in range. They're in range. You got a top tier quarterback. You're getting.
It would have been DK Metcalf. It would have been Peyton taking his shirt off with DK Metcalf at the combine during the interview, and that's who they would have gone with.
I mean, there's a lot of things that could have happened though. There's a lot of things that could have happened that would have just completely changed the trajectory. Look, it's easy to kind of slot these things in, but like they do kind of make logical sense.
You know what though? All that stuff makes logical sense, but I don't care. You can tell me any 10 names. Replace any 10 names, and I still say they're going to 3 Super Bowls with Mahomes at quarterback.
That's all you need. That's all you need. Yeah.
And obviously they still have Cam Jordan. They still have Teron Armstead. They still have Alvin Kamara. They still have Michael Thomas. I mean, it's incredible what we were almost covering. I mean, we were almost covering a dynasty.
Almost.
But instead, this is more fun because now we can.
No, it's not.
What's good team building? You know how boring it is. Like we have a friend who covers the Chiefs. You know, it's just the same special sections every year. Didn't I write this story already? Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes going to Super Bowl for the 4th straight year. I mean, it's boring.
No, man. Give me it every single time. Every single time, man. Every single time. This would be way more fascinating.
Mahomes, and that's the thing is, it's not just hey they could have had this quarterback. They could have had probably the most exciting, the potential to be the best. And definitely the most exciting quarterback I think we've ever seen. It's unbelievable.
Man, if they had Mahomes, like I would have like by now like hired a scientist like so we could do like
Nick
arm angles.
Wait a minute. Nick never leaves New Orleans.
Yeah,
Nick never leaves New Orleans.
I never take that job with the Athletic, but that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
I know. There's no NewOrleans.Football, so it's not worth it.
Maybe not. I mean, I probably wouldn't have left if they were.
Wow.
Like
So I'm full circle back to.
Like if the Nola no call,
I'm glad they don't have. I don't have with this studio's not here.
Yeah, look, if the Nola no call never happens, like but I'd still be here. So like I don't know if people listening to this really care, but for us it's definitely better. But like even if the Nola no call never happens and they win that Super Bowl, like I don't know that I'd take it like another beat writing job that offseason.
You might have. You might have seen the writing on the wall. You might have said that dynasty's about to end and I'm moving on to the next one.
Well, I wasn't moving on to the dynasty. I was catching the end of dying Tom Brady's Patriots career.
Exactly. You've never covered a quarterback in his 20s. You never.
I can't complain, man. I got Brady and Breeze. Like I can't complain about it at all. Like it's a pretty good deal. All right, one more what if before we wrap this thing up. If they get Derek Carr, or they get the quarterback, or a guy at that level or above, do you think it changes anything that they do with Mike Thomas?
I don't see how it could. I mean, I heard you, I think, talking with Kev when I missed the pod, the members only, where you compared it to Teron Armstead was back in play.
Yeah.
If they might have gotten Deshaun Watson, maybe he would take less. I guess that's more of a Michael Thomas question. Would Michael Thomas change his contract? Would Michael Thomas accept less?
Too, though.
Right, but like, I don't think that means the Saints would pay more for Michael Thomas. If they're investing that much in quarterback, I don't think they're like, now that we've spent that much at quarterback, we want to pay Michael Thomas more than we wanted to pay him before. Because if Andy Dalton is your quarterback or Teddy Bridgewater is your quarterback, Michael Thomas is probably even more important, honestly. Like, because that's what they needed, is that guy that they could throw a dang third down or a red zone pass to. So I don't know how that makes Michael Thomas more important to the Saints, but maybe it makes Michael Thomas, if Michael Thomas has to go out there and accept like an incentive-laden career rehab deal, maybe it makes the Saints more attractive for a deal like that. But I mean, just what they've already done to his contract. I mean, they would have to completely tear that out. Like, I feel like they've already moved on. Like the divorce already happened. I would have such a hard time seeing it come back together now.
I don't think it's. I mean, I could see him it's just changing the money. It's just writing a new contract. Really. Yeah, you give him $1 million, you kind of redo it. I could see it. Look, I mean, is the president of like I believe Michael Thomas can be the guy. Like, I want to watch him put it back together. I want to see him do it. So, I mean.
And there's nothing this team could use more. That's not true. Number 1 is quarterback. Number 2 is probably defensive line. Number 3, we've talked about running back, but that's exactly what this offense needs, is a Michael Thomas type.
They need Michael Thomas. They need Michael Thomas.
Yeah,
I would like to see it. Look, if they get him, I could see. I think it would even make sense to try to figure it out. Like, just instead of trying to go get someone else, try to slot him in there. I still think that you got to draft somebody at that position, just to and it's not a knock on Mike. Like, he's just been hurt a lot the last few years. Like, you need the insurance policy on that, but. If you're getting a guy like that, I could see it. Like, I could see maybe a like, hey, let's figure this out type situation. But yeah, I mean, it seems probably more like a long shot than not. The contract does tell us that like he's definitely not coming back on the terms, and that's done. Like that's in ink. So something would have to change there. My other takeaway from the Super Bowl, and I wanted to mention this at the beginning, and we kind of missed it. The Saints have to steal the Eagles, the way they QB sneak. They have to steal it. Give the ball to Taysom. Just put your 2 biggest guys behind them and just let them push the person to the first down. Is there any way
for Taysom to be the guy pushing and Taysom to be the guy holding the ball? Because he's also the perfect pusher in that scenario.
Depending on who your QB is, but like you have to steal that. Yeah. Like,
they better hurry up, because that play is going to get outlawed quickly, I'm sure. They were already talking about it last night.
If they don't,
as long as it's legal.
It's the biggest cheat code in the world. Like, they're converting like 90% of them. And I know they lost the game. I love the way the Eagles play though too. Like, we're going for it on 4th down. If it's 3rd and 6, like we're going to try to get 3, and then we're going to get 3 on the next play. And I think that makes you so much harder to defend. It's not the hindsight analysis. Like, they're willing to live and die, by those results. That's who they are. That's their DNA. And hey, look, we're going to go for it on 4th down in the Super Bowl. And if we don't get it, who cares? Like, that's how we got here. I love the way, like, the full buy-in. If you're going to do it, though, it has to be the entirety of the buy-in. It can't just be like, sometimes we're going to do it, sometimes we're not. Like, it has to be, okay, if the math says to do it, we're doing it. And that's kind of how they play. I love it. I hope, like, that kind of becomes more of an influence on the league. I think it's time to kind of start looking.
I mean, like, everybody talks about analytics. I mean, we even had owners making hiring decisions in Indianapolis saying, I don't want them to be scared of analytics or whatever.
But then he hired the most forward-thinking individual in the world. So.
But the way I feel about analytics is you don't do something because a sheet tells you that it's 48% if you do this and it's 46% if you do this. But if there's something you're inclined to do and a sheet says it's 48% one way, 46% the other way, then that gives you the confidence to be like, okay, fine. So I'm not being an idiot. Like if the sheet said 70 one way and 10 one way, you have to be like, all right, I'm not allowed to do this anymore. But like, if you're like, yeah, you're, going for it on fourth and punting, you basically have the same chance of winning either way. And then it'll be like, well, then I'm going for it because I believe I like my play call and I like my guys. Like, yeah, if all you need is a sheet to tell you you're not an idiot for doing this, then be aggressive. Absolutely. Like,
here's the thing though, like if it was anything else and it was like, okay, this quarterback is 6% better than this quarterback, and then you're playing the guy that's not 6% better, you'd think that they were mismanaging.
Yeah.
So I think to a degree a sheet should. And look, all analytics is they're taking outcomes, analyzing them, and that's it. Like it's not like math creating this, it's football creating the math. And just use the football, like use the evidence that you have. Look, I know like on some of these fourth down decisions, like people are going for them and they work more often because like you are looking at everything and they are advantageous. Like it's not like a perfect, like everybody's going for it on fourth down. We have a variety of outcomes. It kind of takes away like the things that could influence a little bit. So yeah, in something where it is 6%, you might be able to look at it and say, well, yeah, it's 6% better because they went for it only in advantageous situations. But, when it's 60-40, like you should be siding with the 60. And the Eagles are a good example of that. Like they did it all season and it worked for them. And if you're going to have something that works 60% of the time versus 40 and you do it every single time, you're improving your odds of winning football games because you are siding with clear, smart
over time
analytics.
For sure. And consistency is key. Yeah. Like you do it for a reason. I'm never going to kill a team for that. Before we're done, though, speaking of coaching, we haven't had a lot has happened, and it seems minor in comparison to a Super Bowl and the Derek Carr pursuit. But we've had a lot of staff changes since the last time we talked. I believe the last time we did a pod together, we already knew about Todd Grantham and Joe Woods, but not. They have hired a veteran tight end coach, but maybe more importantly, Zach Strief might lose Declan Doyle still in the air with
keeping Kevin Petrie.
Ronald Curry interviewing for that Broncos job. I don't know if he's considered a long shot. I haven't actually heard who people think. I've heard a lot more about the Broncos DC position than OC position, but what is the net gain? A lot of people are panicking and thinking, "Oh, Sean Payton's just getting whoever he wants," and in the end, he's going to get like two assistants that are going from lower level to legitimate promotions, and there's nothing you can do to stop that. There's nothing you should try to do to stop that. But what do you think now that the coaching staff is mostly assembled? What's your takeaway with sort of the whole big picture there?
Well, we'll start with the guy they kept. I like that they kept Kevin Petrie. They've spent a lot of time like developing him, and he's someone that's like the very definition of, okay, the door opened a little, like I'm kicking it down and I'm going. Like you want people like that on your staff. Like he's climbed the ranks. He got two coaches fighting over him like on their staff. Like it says a lot about who he is and who is his development. And this is a tough business to get into. Like it's a lot of nepotism. It's a lot of who you know. Like he's kind of like really like got it out the mud type guy. So I like that they kept him. I think that he's going to keep developing. We've seen him go from like a video worker to someone that works with NFL quarterbacks. So like at some point, like he's going to keep climbing up the ranks. They're going to keep developing him. I like that. I think losing Strief is a hit. Like I think he's someone that's probably going to be an OC at some point in the NFL. Like I think he's that smart. I think he sees the game that way. It's a loss, but what do you do there? Like Doug Marrone's a good coach too. Like you can't necessarily fire Marrone to keep Strief. So
people have been saying that about Jeff Ireland for years too. Oh, have Mickey become executive vice president and then call Jeff general manager. No, the only way you keep those guys is if you give them the job. Yeah. You don't give them a title to keep them. You give them the job. So you do have to remove Doug Marrone to give Zach Strief that job.
And the thing with Jeff is he wants to go to a situation where there is no Mickey, where he's the guy. So like even if Mickey moves up, Mickey's still there.
Mickey's still there.
Yeah, and it's not like, oh, I can't work with him. No, Jeff just wants like the power. Like that would
he wants to be Mickey.
Yeah, he wants to be Mickey somewhere. Yeah. It has nothing to do with Mickey. He wants to be Mickey. And until you change that, Yeah, I mean, it's just not possible.
So
here.
with Streif, I mean, you had to let Streif go. Now Peyton, I don't know if the Saints were pushing back or if he was just talking about like media or fan reaction to it. But that interview with Peyton where he was like telling Zach Streif's whole life story for 2 minutes, and he goes, "So I found him, so it's only right that I can bring him."
That was crazy. That was crazy. Yeah, like he's under contract here. Like that's like okay, all right, I guess so.
He's mine.
But yeah, I mean, look, they're going to lose some guys. That happens every time someone gets hired, and I think Streif's a loss. I think Declan Doyle obviously got a guy on their eyes again. You got Peyton coming after you, he wants you. I mean, that says something about who you are. Saints didn't have a tight ends coach, and they didn't promote him into that role, so it seems like they were probably okay with it, or maybe Declan just wanted to go. Like, but you're going to lose some people. The one guy I'm looking at is I think losing Curry would be a hit. I don't think that would be good. I'd prefer they keep him, and then. I have no reason to think this, but if there were scouting changes, those come after the draft. Mm-hmm. That's when teams make their changes. That's when I start to worry about, like,
is he going to start taking people from that department?
Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know if it's done yet, but look, they rallied. They kept the guy. I don't think there was anything you could do to keep Streif. And look, Streif deserves the right to continue his career. Like holding him because you have a beef with. Staff, people fighting over staff or whatever. Like that's tough. And then I think other people see it, and I think that affects your ability to
you always got to let people go. Yeah. You need to say you're encouraging. I mean, look at the Eagles. They've become a factory. They might have 2 new head coaches hired this week. You want to be known for that because then guess what? When you go to hire people, you're like, it's like recruiting. Like, it's like, yeah, our assistants get hired as head coaches. Come here, be an assistant.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a loss. Those are things they got to figure out. I think losing Streif is going to hurt, though. I mean, he developed Penning. That was kind of his thing. But yeah, I mean, it happens. It happens. I mean, it's
right. Yeah, and I mean, we can defer to Sean Payton himself, who said 1,000,000 times, "You want them to be calling for your coaches." Yeah, it's a bad look if they're not calling for your coaches. Yeah. My overall thought, though, is unfortunately, and if they don't end up getting Derek Carr, I mean. The coaching staff overall is a little bit of I don't want to say buzzkill, but there's nothing. We've gotten nothing to be excited about.
Nope.
They haven't upgraded or added somebody really exciting in any positions that make you think, oh, changes are coming. Like even when I was talking months ago about if they do keep Pete Carmichael, I want them to add, like an LSU Joe Brady to the staff with new ideas. I don't think we've seen that. I don't think we've seen anyone that makes us think like radical change and new ideas are coming into the building, and that's disappointing to me. They
don't need them on defense; they need them on offense.
The positive approach for me though is this is what they've decided is all right. We saw what didn't work last year, and we know we can do it better. I was talking to the same brother-in-law actually who coaches high school football, and I'm like, look at it this way: instead of firing everybody. Let's say you and you and the assistant coach are both looking at everything and be like, nothing went our way this year. Like we had good plans. I know that one game we didn't have a good plan. The kids just they didn't deliver in those games, but I know they can be better next year. You don't immediately think, let's fire everybody. You think, let's do it better next year. And I mean, that is the Saints' approach this year, and that's what they're going to live and die on is same guys, do it better next year. And that's boring. It would be way more exciting if they brought in some wonderkin or whatever, like, oh, this hotshot young guy with all these new ideas. The slogan for this year is do it better this year.
I do think defensively, though, regardless, like they were, no matter what, I think there was going to be a restructuring of how things operated over there. I don't think they were running it back as is, even if Nielsen never leaves. Like I think they would have found a way to reconfigure everything on that side of the ball. I think they clearly told us it didn't work. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, they're putting it together how they want. I think DA has shown us that he has like I want like strong leader type people, veterans in these roles. See if it works. It's his staff now. He put it together, and those are his guys. So we'll see.
I know.
We'll see.
It's
they got to get a
sell
quarterback.
It's hard to sell people that radical change has changed everything. It's see it before you believe it time with the Saints. That's absolutely true.
For me, it's offensively, get a quarterback. Like, honestly, I think that solves so much. I think it alleviates so much. I think Pete Carmichael could succeed with the right player. Like, you see quarterbacks elevate offenses all the time. I don't know if Derek Carr is the guy that elevates you all the way there, but he elevates you above Andy Dalton. And, I think they need just that little bit more of something. They need an identity. They need a direction. And without it, I think I fear that it's just going to be more of the same. So we'll see what shakes out over the rest of the offseason. But that's all we got for you guys this week. We'll be back end of the week, members only pod. And again, appreciate all the support over the last 3 years. We love you guys, and we'll keep trying to be as good as we can be at what we do.